We're just waiting for the last few to come through. If anyone does have any questions, then please type question into the chat box or the question you've got whilst we're waiting. Is that everyone, Wayne?
It seems to have slowed down a bit now, so yeah, I'd crack on probably. Okay.
Right, good morning everyone. I'm Chris Boyle, Head of Employment Napthens. So this is another of our Q&A sessions on the coronavirus crisis, and I guess today the furlough scheme. I'm pleased to say that this morning we're joined by Tracey Simpson, who is Payroll Services Director at MHA and Morgan Smalley Accountants. You probably be aware of Morgan Smalley. In fact, some of you may even know Tracey. So she's joining us this morning to deal with some of the more specific payroll questions which you might have for us. Tracey will be with us till about past, so if you've got any questions that side of that, then please ask them in the next half hour. We'll try and keep this about 45 minutes, subject to the questions that we get, and hopefully not go over that. So, to summarise what happened on Friday, so we obviously got the revised guidance on Friday for the coronavirus job retention scheme. A bit of a complete, I suppose, muddle of information and the way it's been presented. I think it's not the most straightforward of guidance which has been given and various documents. And if anyone needs the links to those documents, there's about 6 in total, then please email us or put it in the chat box and we'll send them to you. But what are the key changes? Well, the key changes are that the furlough scheme will close, as we know, on the 31st of October. As of the 1st of July, employers will now start to be able to begin the flexible furlough scheme. So this is employees basically brought off full-time furlough and brought into work, whilst the employer being able to rely upon the furlough scheme for the hours that the employee has not worked. And we'll come back to that shortly. The guidance has also set out now the changes to the tapering of the scheme. So the 80% contribution from the government is going to remain in June and July. The 1st of August will then begin the tapering, where the employer will be responsible for the employers and pension contributions. September, employers will need to contribute 10%, and the government will contribute 70%. October, employers will then contribute 20%, and the government 60%. Some important points to note is that all claims for the period ending 30th of June must be completed by Friday the 31st of July, and claims for the period from the 1st of July cannot be made until the 1st of July. Another important point in terms of flexible furloughing from 1st of July is that claims cannot straddle 2 calendar months. So at the moment they can, the claims must begin and end within a calendar month, a specific calendar month. And the number of employees that an employer can claim in any claim period cannot exceed the maximum number they've claimed for under the previous claims. So that's important. We can't increase the numbers. It's also relevant where you may have had employees who you've done furloughing in shifts, almost kind of on a rotation basis. So you might have furloughed 20 staff. They come back into work, and the 20 staff in work then go on furlough. If you wanted to claim for all 40, you would have to do that now under the scheme if they're being furloughed separately. So you have that maximum that needs to be adhered to. And the scheme says that employers can bring back employees back to work in any work pattern for any time, and you'll still be able to claim the furlough grant for the hours employees do not work, compared to the hours that they would not normally have worked in that period. So effectively, how flexible furloughing is working is that the employer needs to look at the employee's normal working hours, and that's set out in the guidance how you calculate those, and you claim for the hours that aren't being worked. So if you bring back an employee on a 40-hour working week and they work 20 hours from July onwards, then you can claim for those other 20 hours that they aren't working for that week. So that in a nutshell is how the scheme is going to work. It raises lots of various different issues and questions, which we may come to now. and something I've got some points which I kind of at some point want to just deal with as well in terms of how the scheme works. So Wayne, do we have any questions up front?
We've got a few, yeah. So we got an email from Claire Black before the session, so I'll unmute Claire's microphone. I'll try to.
Hi, Claire.
Oh, okay. Oh, hi. Hi.
Hi.
I was expecting to ask a question, so I thought you
right.
them, so I don't even remember what I asked.
Well, it must have been important then, that's for sure.
There's an awful lot that's happened since then, Chris. So
Absolutely, yeah. Wayne, do you have? Perhaps we can help you with that.
So the email was about do all staff need a new furlough agreement if they've already returned, if a business wants to use the flexibility of a furlough. And the second part to it was if they wish someone to return from current furlough leave agreement, what's the process? And then there was a third part about the differential top up to an 80% equivalent.
Okay, so in terms of the furlough agreement, then I think it's probably sensible that there is a revised agreement put in place. We still have to document the furlough. We will also have to document the hours as well, typically because obviously the way that the flexible furlough is being worked is based on hours worked and not worked. So I think, yes, there will be a flexible furlough agreement which we will provide to clients, and I would use that as you go along. The process for bringing people back or transferring them to furlough will just simply be by agreement. So much like employers went about furloughing people in the first place or have furloughed people on a rotation basis, you would just gain agreement with the employee and agree to vary those existing terms. And I think the last part was around the contribution, and it's up to 80%. So it's the contribution back up to 80% the employer is going to have to make. Again, that's with the employee's consent, of course, which I guess we must always remember when we're talking about 80% and kind of reducing pay. So I hope that deals with the 3 points, Claire. Yep. Good. Okay. Next question, Wayne. Oh, sorry, Claire. Sorry.
I was going to say it's going to be interesting how the employees take it with regards to working less hours, but only being paid at 80%. So it's going to
I mean, I think this is going to be an issue, and that's one of the points I was going to mention actually. That there's going to be a variance in pay as well potentially. You know, you're going to have somebody who is in work who's being paid 100%. Somebody who's being paid 80%. How you actually deal with that is going to be tough. Much like the issue of employees who are furloughed, and you bring some of those furloughed employees back, maybe even in the same team. How would you go about doing that? Well, I guess from an employment law perspective, you've got to say there's got to be some criteria there, because otherwise there could be potential issues further down the line, which is, again, we're heading towards this restructure, reorganisation, redundancy point, and we've now got to be thinking about when we're doing things, what's the rationale for doing it? Because I think before, when people were going on furlough and it was almost, well, we've got to cut costs, we've got to take costs out of the business, let's just do that. Now we've got to think about what's going to happen to these employees at the end. And if some are going to be made redundant, or there's going to be restructures in applying for positions, it's going to be fairly obvious in a lot of organisations that the ones who are on furlough are going to be the ones that aren't kept on, potentially. And that may pose an issue of predetermination of redundant, of dismissal, and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of yeah.
I think also what's going to be difficult is you're going to have to reduce the hours by a significant amount more than the 20%, aren't you? Otherwise, it's not going to be of any use, is it?
Well, I guess it depends what the employer can afford. I guess that's what it's going to come down to. I guess it's going to come down to what the employee. I mean, some employers may not even be able to afford the additional contribution the employer has to make. You know, there'll be some employers sat there thinking, we can't afford this now, so we're going to have to take some action. And then you're into restructure again. You know, other options available. Yeah, so is a lot of it will come down to the economics. Yeah.
Tricky.
Okay, thank you, Claire. Wayne?
Okay, the next question we had was from Helen Zulfi, so I'll ask to unmute now.
Hi.
Hi, Helen.
I had a question about people leaving. So we've got people that have been on furlough leave, but they've resigned because they've got another job to go to. And I didn't know whether we could reclaim the holiday pay that you pay to them at the end when they leave. Sorry, got a child in the background making noise. Can you reclaim the 80% of the holiday pay that you pay to them on when they leave? So if they've got 5 days that they've accrued but not taken.
Oh, I see. You want to accrue the statutory leave. No, you can't. No, you can't. No, you can't. You can't reclaim additional payments. It's got to be salary. Which, I mean, if they were taking the holiday, so you could.
Yeah.
If you gave them notice, then you could claim that back, but not a payment in lieu, which is what you're saying. Or include.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
That's fine. Thank you.
Good stuff.
No.
Wayne?
The next question was from B. Gorrell. I'll try and unmute. Hello. I think last time we had some issues with this person's microphone.
Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Now I've put the question in the chat. So if furlough pay is topped up, are we okay to deduct any salary sacrifice amount from the additional pay as long as the total deducted doesn't decrease the basic furlough pay amount?
Sounds like a payroll question to me.
I knew that was coming. Okay, so I think there's some confusion around salary sacrifice, and I suppose I don't know what the salary sacrifice amount is that we're talking about here. If it's pensions, if it's a salary sacrifice pension scheme, then that has already been in place since the beginning of the new financial year, whether that be April or whether it be January, and that should still be in place to go through, regardless of whether the employee is on furlough or not. And if you top up, it's irrespective of whether you top up or not, because you're still deducting it from the furlough pay. The employee has already agreed to have a salary sacrifice amount. So that should still continue whether you're paying 80% or 100%. If it's in respect of, I don't know, childcare vouchers or cycle to work schemes, then obviously that's a slightly separate arrangement, because you can give the bike back. The employee can give the bike back, so therefore that part of the salary sacrifice could cease. If it's childcare vouchers, then obviously the employee can reduce the childcare vouchers. So I'm not sure what the salary sacrifice amount is here that we're talking about, but if we certainly be talking pensions, it should stay as it was pre-furlough. I don't know whether that answers the question in full.
We'll never know, because
I don't have a microphone, so
Oh, that's all right. So I've answered my first question. Okay.
yeah.
So the next person is, I think Lisa's put a few questions in, so I'll unmute Lisa's microphone now.
Hi, thank you.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi. So yeah, I had a few questions. One, the first one is, do companies have to top up the furlough pay by 10 and then 20% in September, October? Or could an employee agree to have their salary reduced to 70% and then 60% and remain on furlough without the employer topping up, but the employer just pay the NI and the pension pays?
Do you know the answer to that, Tracey?
I don't actually know the answer to that, and there's nowhere in the guidance that actually states that, but looking at it from a HMRC point of view, is they're offering to pay something towards the employee costs, and the employer's not topping that up. Surely that doesn't sit very well with HMRC.
Yeah, I think
they might revoke your claim if that's the case.
Yeah,
and I think that's what I wondered. Is, so you've got a situation where you've got somebody, the children aren't going back to school, the employer can't necessarily afford to pay the top up, but come September, October, the children will be back in school. So in order to retain a job, You know, it's just, I was just trying to work out, and I did wonder if there was going to be some HMRC ruling that actually says in order to claim, say, 70% furlough pay, you must pay the 10%, whether there was anything in there or not. If we don't know, we don't know. I know what the whole things have kind of come about, haven't they? I know, as we kind of move on.
Yeah, I mean, I think I mean, it seems to me that the wording of the scheme is the wording of the scheme, and I think at this moment in time, if you diverge from that, then there's a risk that it's not going to be
compliant, and therefore they
absolutely,
could say, yeah,
absolutely,
no, that makes,
I think it's almost, if you look at the fact that if you're looking at the 80% scheme as it stands at the moment, that if you don't pay that in full to your employees, you're actually gaining from HMRC, and that, to me, that's a similar situation if you're not topping up.
That would make sense. The implied term, the implied term is, or that you would pay the 10%.
Yeah.
My other question was, say you've got somebody, they've been on furlough for, I don't know, 2 months now, and we're getting to a point that actually we need them part-time, but we can't bring them back part-time till July. So if we bring them back for a week this month, towards the end of the month, can they then go on part-time furlough from July?
If they've previously been furloughed and qualified for that, then they can.
For 3 weeks, that's what I thought.
Correct,
I just wanted to confirm that. That's fine.
They've still got 23 weeks furlough on the
Yes, so they've been on furlough since March. So, but it's they want to bring them back for a week this month because we can't do part time. It's not ideal, and then they'll go on, and then they'll go part time.
Yeah, I guess the only caveat with that is if somebody starts furlough in the last week in June, they've still got to have 3 weeks until they get. So they would have to start in that last week in June, have that week, then another 2 weeks, then they can start on the flexible furlough at that point.
So you've got to have 3 weeks. Are you saying you must have 3 weeks preceding the part time? Correct. Okay.
So you can't kind of stop and start just because July comes. It's got to see its course out for that 3 week period. Yeah.
So it's got to be for the 3 weeks preceding the 1st of July to then go part time.
Or it can go into July. Yeah. So as I say, it could be the last week of June and 2 weeks in July. But you can't have a week at the end of June and then
full time and then go part time. Okay, that's fine. And then 0 hours, our favourite people. So it was fairly straightforward to do the calculation of earnings, you know, in terms of averaging. Now we want to start bringing people back. How are we calculating furlough versus them coming back? Because there's no obligation to offer hours anyway. But if people, so we've got a lot of people that have, say, consistently work 30 or 40 hours a week, for example, or 20 or 30 hours a week. So they could be classed as employees, but it's flexible, it's hospitality. So would they then, you know, how is that going to work, basically?
I think that works in exactly the same way, Lisa, is the fact that you still do the average, you know, over the 52 weeks, and you can pay them, you can bring them back part-time for the hours that you want, and you furlough them for the average of the time that the average of the 12 months previous.
Yeah.
I mean, I've read the guidance. I actually think the guidance this time is so much better and clearer than it was in April. And have you seen all the guidance that's come out, Lisa?
No, I've not read it yet. I'm preparing myself.
It goes through the scenarios and does cover variable hours in there, and it's quite clear, I think. They always give the perfect scenario, don't they?
Of course.
But to be honest, I think it's quite easy to follow this time.
Great.
So you're still working on the same sort of periods, or this time last year as well.
Great. And so I just wanted to clarify, you're going to send the links to that guidance, aren't you, to everybody on the call afterwards?
Yes.
So we can have a read. Perfect.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, we will. We'll send all the links out. It's quite an interesting point with 0 hours workers, actually, in terms of some 0 hours employees have been furloughed who haven't worked for a period of time or don't generally do a lot of work, and it's certainly we've had some challenging points around taking those people off furlough. And what happens then is, does there become an expectation that there is work there, or does there become an argument where you're in breach of the furlough agreement? And it comes down to the word of the furlough agreement, to be honest, but by not allowing us to stay on furlough because there's no work for them, effectively, they just come back on bank. So there's some interesting scenarios we picked up there, and I think we've kind of landed on the point that you should probably look just to terminate the, subject to the furlough agreement, look to terminate the 0 hours contract. That's probably a best way out, rather than a claim perhaps coming from 0 hours employees. Well, I should be allowed to stay on this furlough agreement because this is what you told me would happen, and because you can't bring them back to work necessarily because they're flexible, they're kind of 0 hours staff, you'd have to look to kind of terminate the agreement. It's just an interesting point we've come across, but a lot of it does come down to the word of the furlough agreement. And if you look at the majority of furlough agreements, it doesn't really fit with a 0 hours member of staff, because the main occasion it would end, the furlough agreement for 0 hours, or for any employee, is when you bring them back into work because there's work to do. But for 0 hours, in the main, there's no obligation to give them work, so there is no work for them to do. So it becomes quite complicated, but it's just worth thinking about that with 0 hours staff. Anyway.
Do you think there's any issue then if you get to the end of October and you're still not opening the furlough schemes then, just not dismissing people, not letting them go, but just simply not giving them any hours?
I think when the scheme ends, it's fine because there's going to be no live claim. But I think, if I'm a 0 hours worker now and I've been furloughed since April, and my furlough agreement says the only time that I can be defurloughed is if there's work available for me.
Yeah, understood.
Or the scheme ends, and the scheme hasn't ended at this moment in time. I'm taken off furlough. There's no work for me because I'm 0 hours. I'm going to potentially think I've got a breach of contract claim here against the employer. I should be on furlough. And that's where the wording of the agreement comes into play. But a lot of people and organisations didn't think about that when they were furloughing 0 hours staff. I mean, there's a big question why you would furlough 0 hours staff, actually, but it wasn't something that was given much thought initially. But it will become an issue, and that's aside from the individuals who are 0 hours contracts, but they've almost got permanent hours, and kind of fixed hours doing work.
I think there's quite a lot of people that are like that, where they just have regular variable hours, if you like. So it's more a variable contract than a 0 hours contract. Yeah. Okay, thank you very so much.
Thank you. Interesting stuff. Wayne?
We had a question from Gavin earlier on, so I will unmute Gavin.
Hi, Gavin. Oh, hello. We're struggling to hear you, Gavin.
Can you hear me, Chris?
There we go. Got you.
There's a lot of stuff coming out this morning, isn't there? I'm sort of like in comments into general text as you're talking. The one thing about the 0 hours, I did smirk to myself when you said maybe it wasn't a good idea to put 0 hours in people into furlough. We were told to do that, so we're kind of hoisted on our own petard there somewhat. I do think there's a differentiation between the two furlough schemes that we are certainly looking to use with 0 hours people in terms of reviewing the employment position of 0 hours into furlough 2 versus furlough 1, because it was actually registered as furlough 1 and furlough 2 when he introduced it, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The big question for us is this month to month claiming. We have, and this will be the same for people on weekly payrolls as well. We pay people for weekly. So we're running a payroll now, which takes us up to this Friday, which will be the 22nd. We pay the 29th. Now, my view was that any payroll where the liability was fixed in June, so effectively we're fixing our claim liability in June for this 4 weekly payroll. as we claimed that by the 31st of July, then we were okay. But what you're now saying is that not only do we have to claim for the 4 weeks we're paying them to the 22nd of June, but we also need to top up that claim with the weekend in the 29th of June, and then we need to claim that on the same claim as the proper payroll that we're running. So we're almost starting to have to run our payrolls in advance.
Yeah.
Claims it.
Is that how it works, Tracey, in your view?
Yeah, Gavin, I totally agree with you. This is an absolute pain for any payroll person, well, any business, but particularly in payroll. You're quite right. You've got your first claim going through to the 22nd of June, this pay period, but then you're going to have to make either a forecast of what you're going to be doing for the last week in June, or you make a subsequent claim just for that week. So then you go into the calendar months. And you are quite right in the fact that you are going to have to be forecasting what you're claiming for. And if you overclaim, of course, there's now an amendment tool on HMRC where you can adjust that claim. But if you underclaim, then you have to sit and wait to speak to HMRC to make any adjustments to that claim. In payroll, we're in a payroll bureau, we're facing the same thing, is that we're going to have to ask clients to forecast what they are going to be paying so that we can help in their claims. Otherwise, we're going to have, at the end of the month, a lot of claims happening in that final week, because there's no other way of doing it.
Yeah, because it's not only weekly pay people, is it? You know, there's weekly pay, there's 4 weekly pay like us, but even some monthly people only pay the 15th of the month, don't they?
Exactly, you're right. Yeah, I mean, in payroll we've got every frequency. Imagine we've got you right with the weekly, we've got the fortnightly, the 4 weekly, and as you say, some monthly clients who pay their payroll mid-month or pay to a certain pay period.
Yeah.
And we've got that to be dealing with going forward. They've not made it easy, have they, Gavin?
No, definitely. I can understand the rationale for saying that any claim that becomes apparent during June has to be claimed for by the end of July. I can understand that because people were hoarding their claims. But in terms of forcing us to deal on a month-to-month basis, that's going to be really hard now. Amnesty portal open now then.
So, what was that? Sorry, Gavin, I missed that.
I'm calling it the amnesty portal in terms of you own up to your overclaims.
Yes. Well,
right.
They're not all over claims though, are they, as well? There are some claims where we know that we've not been able to put in for certain employees because we've got no national insurance number for whatever reason. So, you know, there's lots of reasons why amendments need to be made. I do disagree with the fact that HMRC have set up a portal to make claims, to adjust your claims if you've overclaimed, but not set up a portal for claims when you've underpaid, because that's, you know, the both scenarios are happening.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for your answers.
No problem.
Thanks, Gavin.
Be the one I wanted, but I suspect it's the right one. Thank you.
Yeah. Gavin, I noticed you put a question on there, and I just don't know whether it's worth picking up on that because I am going to have to go to another meeting. But you've mentioned in one of your responses that putting an employee on furlough in the last week of June is too late. You're quite right, except if they've already previously been on furlough.
Right.
And I think that's what Chris was referring to in his conversation.
Right. Okay. I just didn't want people to pick up on the fact that Chris was saying you can put them on furlough the last week in June, and it's like, whoa, no, you can't.
No.
No. They've got to qualify. Obviously, they've got they've still got to be eligible. Yeah.
Right. Thanks, team.
Okay.
Thanks, Gavin. Cheers, mate.
Next up's Lee Williams.
Hi, Lee.
Yeah, hi, Chris. I think one of my questions has already been answered regarding obviously, was it necessity, obviously, that employers top up the 10 and 20%. I think I've got that. My second question was around this period now between sort of June going into the July, and obviously then the part-time furlough scheme coming in. So I would like this week to bring a couple of my sales team back in just to do some tidying up just for a couple of days in terms of chasing credit control issues, speak to customers about when they're opening, the pubs potentially. But then I was then going to sort of,
Hey,
put them back up.
you both in the office? Put me on.
Sorry.
Sorry.
It's okay. Yeah, and then I was going to put them back on furlough then till the end of, again, obviously until they're needed. So would I have to wait then 3 weeks, even though July comes sooner? I have to put them, if I wanted to bring them back again for a couple of days, or does it?
Yeah. So that's what the guidance is. That's what the guidance is saying. If someone is, I mean, they obviously qualify for furlough because they've already been furloughed, haven't they?
Yeah, they have.
But if you put them back on furlough now, they would have to have that minimum 3 week period still.
Right. Okay.
But once that ends and we're into July, then you can do what you want at that stage.
Right.
In terms of the hours furlough.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, got that. Thank you.
Okay. Good stuff.
Okay, the next question was from Richard Guest. So, asking to unmute.
I think I've understood it correctly, but I might have got a bit confused earlier. If somebody's part-time furloughed for 2 days and works for 3 days, the company pays them for the 3 days as normal, and the 80% only applies to the 2 days.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, because I could.
Unless you agree something else with the employee in terms of their normal pay, I guess.
Yeah.
At work, but yeah.
I could have read one of the answers earlier to be, you only have to pay them 80% no matter how many hours they work. But you have to pay them 100% for the hours that they do actually work.
Yeah, if they're back in work, subject to any other agreement with the employee, you would have to pay them 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Yeah, fine.
Right. Good stuff. Any more questions, Wayne?
Yeah, there was a couple. Claire Black had another question. So Claire should be unmuted.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi, Claire. Yeah.
Actually, Lizzie asked a really good question, and that was what happened, and I agree. What happens in October if somebody's still pregnant with regards to furlough and you can't take them back to work? And the other thing I also wanted to ask is, with regards to the 3 weeks that you're discussing pre-July, but post-July, are we okay just to bring them back, just do them on part-time hours?
Well, I mean, once the flexible furlough kicks in 1st of July, then you can use that.
Yeah. So
but
with regards to the pregnancy, which Lizzie asked, actually, Lizzie Govia. So.
Yeah, I saw that in the chat box. Yeah. So if someone's pregnant now and he's furloughed, once the scheme ends, I guess the scheme ends, and it's then the options around. The employer will have to look at the other options available to it, whether that be some aspect of flexible working or alternative arrangements. And I guess there's going to be a big question mark over whether or not somebody's at risk as well. So if somebody is pregnant, are they at risk from a health and safety point of view, coming back into the workplace when coronavirus, may have peaked again, or there may be a spike, but there could still be some risk. And I think we then get into a health and safety discussion about whether it's reasonable for that employee to refuse to attend work, I guess. At that stage, has the employer carried out a risk assessment? Have they put in place measures so to reduce the risk? If there still is a risk and it's accepted, does the employer then have to suspend them on health and safety grounds, which will be on full pay? So there's going to have to be a consideration from the employer, as I guess with every member of staff, around the risk and what measures they can implement to reduce that risk, and then discussion with the employee, I guess, at that stage. But once
we are in early years, so we are unable to adhere to any social distancing. So You'd have to.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is the problem. I mean, that's going to be the issue in education, isn't it, as well, in the care sector and other areas. If in that scenario, if there's deemed to be a risk to the pregnant employee, then there would have to be a suspension on health and safety grounds, which is on full pay. If there isn't deemed to be a significant health risk, then de facto the employee comes back into work, unless there's some other arrangement that can be that can be come to. But it's going to the next few weeks and months is going to be there's going to be lots of questions around the return to work and when employees should be expected to return and when it's reasonable for them to refuse. And we get into, I mean, we've been talking a lot in the last few weeks around Employment Rights Act, Section 100 and Section 44. This, someone can't suffer a detriment for taking protected conduct, which is not turning up for work effectively or kind of leaving the place of work because they feel there's a serious and imminent threat to their health. And if an employee can demonstrate that it's reasonable for them to take that view, that there is a serious and imminent threat, danger to their health, then they are protected. And they can't be dismissed. And there's even a question about whether they should be paid potentially as well. So all these issues are going to come out, and we have to, and I suppose we're trying to navigate our way through them based on individual circumstances and based on individual health concerns and the type of business, the type of organisation, and what the risk is really. But a lot of that will come down to just carrying out that risk assessment up front, understanding the risk, and then having the discussion with the employee.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, Wayne?
Yeah, we had a question from Rebecca Kirby, who've just unmuted.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, Rebecca. How are you doing?
Hi. I think my question's actually been answered now, but just to clarify, if we've got a member of staff, she's been furloughed since the beginning of April, and we are trying to bring her back for a week in June. Can we bring her back for a week, put her back onto furlough, and then look further down the line at bringing her back part-time?
Yeah.
So I thought that was the answer. So as long as we put her back on for 3 weeks after we
correct. Yeah. So people who've been furloughed, employees that have been furloughed, can now be furloughed going forward. So it can be furloughed now for 3 weeks, and then in July they can be furloughed. You can start to look at this flexible intermittent furloughing, and you can do it for a day or a couple of days, whatever it is. Yeah, at that stage.
I thought so. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
There was another question from Helen Zulfi, which was about maternity returners. So I'll just unmute Helen again.
It was just a question about people returning from maternity leave, and is it still the case that they have to have effectively done their 8 weeks notice before they can go on furlough leave?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the return to work. Yeah.
And second question about term time only workers. So if they essentially have been furloughed through the Easter and May holidays as such, would they be entitled to either be paid for them or take them at another point in the year?
That will come down to I guess will come down to their contracts. I mean, we have advised on that over the last few weeks, and we've almost played the point that they've taken the holidays in those periods. So we've almost said you've taken your holidays within the period anyway, so that there's nothing due.
Right.
But it will come down to how it's been handled or how it's been framed up front, really. But that's been our position, that they've had the chance. The holidays are there. They've taken them. Therefore, we're not about to reimburse them for any additional holidays.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks.
There was another question from Lisa.
Hi, thank you. So I was just thinking about the flexible furlough in July. So we've agreed that if somebody comes back now, they have to go on furlough then for another 3 weeks before they can come off in July and then be flexible. Can you flex it sort of like I don't know, they work 2 days this week and then they work 4 days next week and then a day the following week. Is it that flexible, the scheme from July?
It will be in July. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it will. So it's all based on hours worked, really. So the employer looks at the normal hours,
yeah,
and then they can give people many different variables in terms of working pattern as they want, and then you calculate the excess hours
that
haven't been worked, and those are the furloughed hours, and that's where I think Tracey, she's gone now. I think she was being fairly kind to the government. Oh, you're there. Yeah. I think we're being kind to the government in terms of the guidance, because certainly some of the works examples I was looking at over the weekend, perhaps it's just because I'm a lawyer, I don't know, but it seems to be pretty complicated to me. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, and I guess the purpose of that is the more they work, the less the government have to pay out.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next question was from Marianne Park.
Hi, Marianne.
Hi, hello.
Hi.
Try and put my camera on. I've got two questions actually. First question is, what do you think the audit will be for the flexible furlough scheme? Because that's going to be pretty difficult to know whether somebody on, over 40-hour contract and they've only worked 20.
That's a good question. Tracey, any views on that?
Well, I think in the new claims that are going forward, you have to detail the amount of hours that an employee's worked and been on furlough. How HMRC are going to audit any of these claims, to be honest, I really don't know. I've only heard of one, not a client of Smalley, I do have to say as well. It's been told at the end of the claim submission that they are going to be audited. So if you've not received anything like that, then maybe you're in the lucky section. But to be honest, Marianne, I have no idea. They're expecting you to keep your records completely and utterly straight.
For somebody who works 40 hours and they're required to just work 20, it's so easy to work 21 hours, but it's so easy to work 22 hours. It's going to be so difficult, but thank you for that. I do wonder whether the first question the HMRC will ask will be to the employee and say, did you work anything over in your furlough period? I wonder whether that would be built into the audit, but don't know. And then
sorry, Marianne, I'll come back on that as well. So any hourly paid employees, obviously on their pay slips, it should now be stating the number of hours that they've worked at any point. So you up until 2019, you could just put a blanket basic pay on, and nobody knew what hours they'd actually worked. But obviously the guidance has changed. So now they're clearly wanting to see on pay slips that you've got 20 hours worked and 20 hours furloughed, for example, in that situation. And as long as that ties in with your records, yes, if they ask the employees, but let's face it, unless the employee keeps a record, how are you going to remember?
Sorry, so in terms of the payslip, and I'm not payroll, know anything about payroll at all. So is that for all employees in terms of how many hours, or just weekly, not monthly?
Just any hourly paid staff.
Hourly paid. Okay, right. Yeah, sure. And most of ours are monthly, but I have contracts for 40 hours a week. Thank you very much. And the second question is around work and what classifies as work. And we are going through a restructuring process, and we anticipate that we will have some people who will need to attend competitive interviews, and just wondered whether they could do that on furlough, or whether we would have to unfurlough them for them to attend the interviews.
Yeah. It's a very good question. It's unclear really whether or not that would qualify. But personally, I don't think it is, and I think I'm supported in that by the fact that there is the right to make redundancies during furlough, or consultation can occur during furlough, and the guidance was amended for that a few weeks ago now. So if that can happen, and there's no suggestion that's going to breach the rules, then why couldn't somebody go through A, consultation, or B, a competitive interview? There's no value, there's no services being provided to the company, there's no revenue being generated for the company. So I think we take the view that that will be fine, and certainly, even things that we've had complicated disciplinary processes that companies are running whilst and staff are on furlough as well. Got to be careful sometimes on that, but in principle, I don't see a problem with a competitive interview.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Maria.
We've got 2 questions left, I think. One's a
right.
follow-up from Gavin, and then another one. So I'll unmute Gavin. Let's ask his follow-up.
I think he might have asked that one, Z. Oh no. Yeah.
I sorry about. I thought you'd muted me when I rang back to my payroll team to for them the good news. They when I was talking to them about the answers that I got, they raised an interesting one in terms of that weekend of June has got the Monday and Tuesday. So rather than claim just for the Monday and Tuesday in terms of the claim that we put forward in advance, to make it easier, can we claim for that full week, which incorporates the Monday and Tuesday, 29th and 30th of June. So we'd be claiming up to the 3rd of July. So we make sure that we make that claim before the end of the month. So you're actually claiming more than the calendar days, but we're incorporating all of June into the June claims.
So Gavin, when was your June payroll ending, and what was the claim date you were going to put it on to then?
So the payroll actually finishes this Friday.
Yeah.
So then we'd have next week and those odd 2 days of June that we would have to be claiming for in advance, if you like, in terms of doing the first claim for the payroll and then doing your second one that you suggested. But what my payroll team has said is that can we claim for the whole week, because we do pay people by the week during the 4 weekly, and it'd be easier.
No, my understanding is that the scheme ends on the 30th of June as it currently stands, and you can't do a crossover period over months, and that's why they're going on calendar months going forward. So the next claim, you'll have to go from the 22nd to the 30th of June, and then start your claim on a calendar month.
Right. Okay.
So I'm sorry to annoy your payroll team, but they're in the same situation as we are.
Well, they're happy at the moment because I just admitted to them they were right and I was wrong. So okay.
Surely not.
Always listen to your payroll team.
Thank you.
Let's go. Okay, Wayne.
The final question was from Sondra Cairns.
Hi.
Hi, Sondra.
Are you all right?
Oh, good, you?
Yeah, fine, thanks. Yeah, just a quick question. Obviously, I've been listening to this, all the questions and answers on this flexible furlough. If we did bring somebody back, say 2 days a week in July, and obviously the furloughed for the rest of the week, is it possible to furlough them fully? I know there's obviously the need to get people more back into work, but can we furlough them for 5 days or not? And what is the minimum period of furlough if we did?
Yeah, you can furlough them fully. There's now from July. Yeah. There will be the 3 weeks minimum will go. It will just be you claim in periods of a minimum of a week. That's all there is. But there's you can do effectively. You can apply the furlough how you want to apply it. Yeah. Probably the best way of putting it. Yeah.
Yeah. Fine. Thank you. That's it.
All right, Sondra.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Okay, Wayne.
I think that was it.
Okay, that's good stuff. Okay, well, thanks for everyone. Thanks for all the questions. Thanks for Tracey for coming in and dealing with those tricky payroll issues. I'm glad you were here. We will send the links to the guidance through. We'll send Tracey's details through as well, so people have got those. Got any questions, then just email us or call us. We'll probably do another Q&A in the next couple of weeks. For HR3 clients, we do have one penciled in towards the end of June for HR3 clients, but we'll probably do an open one as well in the next couple of weeks as well. So thanks very much and take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.